Hey, football freaks, it's Alan. Just want to take the time here to let you know that this week's show is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts. If you're thinking of doing a podcast, there is a way for you to do a show without having to become an audio editing master, a production whiz kid. You can just go to prettyeasypodcast.com and get your own personal producer at a very, very low cost. That'll be someone who can guide you, assist you, help you out with whatever you need to get your podcast off the ground. If you have an idea or a topic you want to talk about on a weekly basis, a daily basis, it doesn't matter. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com. Get started today. Take some of the hassle of starting a podcast off your shoulders and let the audio professionals at Pretty Easy Podcasts help you out. Pretty Easy Podcasts is where podcasters go to get their shows recorded and posted with a complete podcast studio at their disposal. Record from home or your office or anywhere, really. Pretty Easy Podcasts caters to your schedule and gives you a producer for your show at your beck and call. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com, sign up today, be heard, have some fun podcasting, and don't let a lack of technical knowledge hold you back. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com today.
This is the future. This is not the past.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020.
If you smell what the XFL is cooking.
It's still football, but it's professional football reimagined.
This is our moment, our story to tell. This is history begun.
This is the XFL.
Welcome, football fans. This is the week of October 13th, 2019. This is the road to 2020, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
I'm Jake.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Bryant.
This week, the XFL released the entire list of eligible players for next week's XFL Draft. Now it's time to dive deep into the draft pool to see which players might stand out above the crowd. It's episode 91. We're mock drafting 17 weeks away from kickoff in February. Closer than ever, Jake. And what a week it's been with the rollout of season tickets, the announcement of the XFL Draft, the announcement that Bryant and I, as part of This is the XFL show, will be at the XFL Draft. I can't believe it. We made it this far, but we've gotten this far as a show with still 17 weeks to go. I mean, pat ourselves on the back, right?
Yeah, a lot of people, they wanted the draft more than scheduling or team names.
That's Vince and I.
Or logos, and you're finally going to get it this coming week. And you two are going to be there, in the headquarters to cover it while Vince and I are going to be manning the home base here.
Yes, and we're going to be all about the draft next week, Vince. I mean, we're going to have war rooms, we're going to have roar rooms, we're going to have all sorts of action on the social media, all sorts of action on the podcast feed. It's going to be insane and a lot to keep up with, so hopefully today can set us up for that.
Yeah, this is a big time event as far as I'm concerned. A lot of people I've talked to, they just want to, they keep saying, who's going to be in this league? Who's going to be on this team? Who's going to be on that Who am I rooting for? We're going to find out, the majority of those players this coming week. I'm very excited about it. People are going to be saying, we got Trent Richardson. I can't wait to get my my Renegades Trent Richardson jersey. People are going to be saying that kind of stuff come Wednesday.
I'm hoping Bryant come Tuesday for the XFL Draft has some jerseys mocked up for us to wear while we're there at headquarters. I want to wear my LA Wildcats jersey. Hook it up, Bryant.
I've done plenty this week leading up to the draft. I think those are going to have to wait until after the draft, so I don't get those wrong.
Yeah, sure. You turned into some kind of scout this week getting ready for just this episode, didn't you?
I'm an analytics guy. I love sabermetrics and things like that. So you guys you and Vince, I feel like, look at a player and just know by looking at him. I need numbers. I need stats, or else I would have been lost in this draft. So that's where I'm at.
Did you pay for Pro Football Focus specifically to be ready for this episode?
Never. Those stats are so subjective. You can't even look at those things and be like, oh, that's true.
Might have been a good idea to do that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I want to know. I really would love to get a glimpse at what kind of data and what kind of scouting each of these coaches and their staffs have for every team. I mean, the research that has to go into picking 70 players and also your assigned quarterback. But this is an intense amount of research. You got to imagine, Vince, that each team is putting into the next Tuesday and Wednesday's draft.
Yeah, it ain't the NFL draft, that's for sure. It's not like you need to identify 7 players. You got to identify 70 players in order to build your club. This is a huge undertaking for these coaches. I mean, the countless hours that they must have put in. Really probably starting with the showcases over the summer. They've been preparing for these 2 days coming up. And I can't wait to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and so today we're going to have kind of a little mini preview, not only just a fun exercise, but also hopefully throw some names out there that we recognize. We have done a limited amount of research, or a lot if you're Bryant, and looking at some players' names, going over the showcase stuff that we saw, and we're going to talk about some players today, and also draft strategy some more, which we began last week for each team. Now that we know where they're picking in this draft through the 5 phases, we'll get into all of that. But also on our last episode, if you didn't catch it, we had an episode earlier this week. Episode 90 came out earlier this week, and we did a 2-episode week this week because it was a big week. I mean, to say the least. So we already had an episode, so go check it out. Oliver Luck joined us. He explained the process of the XFL Draft, how it's all going to go down, and also the philosophy behind creating the 5-phase format. Check out the full interview on our YouTube channel, or just listen to the full episode on the podcast feed or YouTube as well. It was very informational, very illuminating, and one of our biggest shows ever, I'd say, Brian. It was a fun one, and hopefully we top it with this one, which is going to be a lot different. That was informational and descriptive. This is going to be a lot of arguing and telling each other, you're wrong, they should do this.
Yeah, Alan, if you watch, we were live on YouTube for that episode this past Thursday, and it was pretty informative. I thought Oliver Luck gave some great insight. If you go to YouTube and you find the video, there were some cool graphics that we did, scrolls, and gives you a lot of the breakdown of what's happening this Tuesday and Wednesday. But you're right, Alan. That was very descriptive. It was very, fact, as I said on that show. This one's going to be a lot of fun. We might not talk to each other on Tuesday and Wednesday after this show when we're out there in Connecticut for the draft.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're going to get a peek at each other's football philosophies and also what we think each team is going to be thinking going into this draft. This is what, getting ready for a draft's all about, Vince, except the stakes are way higher and it's a lot more thorough. It's unlike anything you're going to experience if you are a draft Nick, as we like to call them, Vince, because this is like a once in a lifetime event. You said it's a big event. I'm saying once in a lifetime. How often do you get to have league building drafts? It's never going to happen again.
Yeah, sir. Probably not in professional football for quite a long time. It's just, even as an outsider's perspective, very interesting to see, because usually, you're getting ready for a draft and, you're looking at Kuiper Jr.'s big board, or you're looking at, who Jay Billis thinks you're going to be taking. Well, here, there is none. There isn't much coverage. There are no XFL draft experts. Out there, the guys have really been studying this for a long time. So this is, like you said, a very unique thing, a once in a lifetime thing. Very interested.
Yeah,
I've just been
short. We're the experts now, man.
I was going to say, I've been using Bryant as my expert.
Wait,
he keeps sending me email where he wants my PayPal information to get more information, but I'm not bugging.
First of all, Bryant's hair's nowhere near Mel Kiper Jr. If anything, he's more of a Todd McShay. And second of all, besides, you're right, Vince. Besides everybody in the war rooms of the 8 XFL teams and everyone in Stamford, outside of those walls, there aren't the experts or the people who are capitalizing, we could say, on this draft, because this is an intensely researched, high-stakes draft for each of these teams. This is the league building process. This is the team building process. A lot on the line. You need to be aware of what players are able to do, the abilities of these players. The scouting was intense going into this thing. It is super exciting and crazy to think that they're going to be able to get this done in 2 days, because this is difficult. We're just going to do a mock draft here in a little bit. And I know it seems daunting to just us, and we're not even coming close to 70 rounds. We're just going to do one pick per phase coming up. But yeah, this is an insane type of event that really we need to soak in, because it's rare. And also, if you, like Brian said, do not know exactly how this thing's going to go, we're going to lay it out a little bit later on, but really go back and listen to last episode that came out earlier this week. And on YouTube, you got a visual representation too, because it shows you kind of like a traditional draft ticker, but how it works, because this is a 5-phase draft that is going to be picked, as players are going to be selected by position in each phase. So go check out the last episode. It was awesome. There was also a lot of information on season tickets in that one too. So please check out episode 90. This is, I'm sure, the first, Brian, of many weeks where we'll have more than one episode coming up with so much more information coming out about the XFL.
Oh, this draft is causing the 2 episodes this week, but definitely we're going to be totally in this 2-episode mode, I would think, as the season gets closer and closer. And when the season gets here, I've been telling you guys this for a long time. Some of us just have to face the facts at this point and say, yes, we're going twice a week. There's just so much information and so much to come. We've been saying it for so long. The beginning of October was probably the last time we're actually going to get to have some fun with some speculation. Now it's full throttle ahead. We got real information. What was that, Vince?
Which we hate doing. We hate speculating.
We did speculation for 90 weeks, I think.
We did it, but I didn't like it.
I mean, think of it this way, though, Vince. We speculated for that long, and not once did we violate HIPAA.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better about myself.
Yeah, me too. I think we did a good job with that. And I think we definitely did a good job with the help of Oliver Luck on last episode of laying out how the draft works, why it's going to be formatted this way. And we're going to get into a little mini mock draft coming up here shortly.
Where football goes to be reborn. Where football goes to be reimagined. Where one goes to find more of what they need. A place with endless possibilities and hidden gems. A place where only one's limitations determine how much is explored. A place that gives you all the football you can handle and more. This is the XFL Show's Patreon, guiding you to February 2020.
But first, let's get into some quick news and tidbits that are coming out right before the draft next week regarding player salaries, and also a high-profile player that some were speculating, there it is, speculating again, might be a part of this XFL draft in this week's Cover 2.
Going for 2. Go for 2 and the lead.
I guess it would be this week's second Cover 2. I don't know. All right, yeah, here it is, the Cover 2. Number 1, first item here. A memo to agents was, I guess, leaked or reported by Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. The XFL sent a memo to agents detailing salaries for players, the average pay. Got to stress the word average pay for some XFL players, and essentially stuff we already knew, but we see the football media reporting on it. Pro Football Talk, Darren Rovell of the Action Network, Yahoo Sports, a lot of other outlets had articles on this info that came out from the memo, and they all kind of spun it in a similar way, and were surprised at what these details were. But really, Bryant, when you look at what was reported and revealed in this memo, a lot of it is the salary structure we've known about when we've been talking about the tier system in the XFL for a while now.
Yeah, it's been reported that I think a lot of people took this is how much each player is going to make. I think the word average was thrown out there as well. We had reported on some of these facts after the summer showcase. I was able to talk to Alan. I spent the time to talk to Eric Galco at one of these summer showcases and confirmed that there were going to be some win bonuses, some roster bonuses, just like this. It's something we've known. I guess there's probably more eyes on the league now, which is good for the league. And people are reporting this as new news. But yeah, it's basically in line with the structures that we've said. Oliver Luck has kind of faded away from using the tier, quote unquote, verbiage, but I still feel like there's that tier structure that quarterbacks are going to get, maybe some top players as well as the tier 3s and 4s.
Yeah, we know for sure those assigned quarterbacks are going to make around $450,000. The great info from this memo that came out that I'm excited about is we did get the details of the bonus pay, and that's really cool, Vince, because we've got active players. So if you're a starter, one of the 46 starters on a roster in a week of the XFL, your bonus we now know is going to be $1,685 just for being active. You get that bonus pay.
Yeah, that's huge, and there's going to be a win bonus as well, $2,222. This was something that was huge during and heavily promoted during the original XFL in 2001, and Jesse Ventura was very famous for saying this. Players won't just get paid to play, they'll get paid to win.
And I know that Jake is all about this incentivizing for players on the field. That's why he was drawn to the XFL originally back in the day. Jake, if I know anything about Jake, is Jake respects people who earn their keep based on their merits, based on hard work, based on winning. Jake's all about competition. So with the numbers we now know, the win bonus there, Jake, the active player bonus, what do you think about the league incentivizing players to win football games? Do you think they're doing it?
Yeah, they're doing it. It's the only, it really is the only way to do it. If you're good enough to start, here's some more cash. If you win the game, here's some more cash. I mean, some of the numbers that were listed are a little misleading. I mean, sure, if you never make the active roster and you go 0-10, then, it's going to appear like you're going to, be pulling in a significant amount, less significant amount of money than somebody that's better than you and, is on a winning team. And that's only fair.
I'm excited for this because the win bonuses are enough. I mean, let's face it. These are players who are not, turning down $1 million deals. And so for one week for winning a game to get over $2,000, that's nice. That makes you feel good. That makes the win feel even better. And winning always feels good. But when you add $2,000 on top of it, that's nice. And, when you go out there, now we're going to get maybe pregame interviews, Jake, where these players are going to say, I have to win this game. Those guys, the Dallas Renegades and Bob Stoops are trying to take food off my family's table.
Yeah, something like that. Or, looking at the camera saying, kids, if I win this game, I'm putting that down payment on the swimming pool.
Double Y.
Yeah, above ground or in ground, Jake.
It depends what what your record is over the year, I guess.
The code in the state as well, I'm sure. It is pretty cool to see that that this is what they carried over from the original XFL. I always liked the fact that there was always this graphic that I can recall that it was I think it was a game between the Orlando Rage and the Birmingham Bolts. And it just said the average salary per player on each team. And it was just so interesting to me because if you remember, the Birmingham Bolts were the last place team while the Orlando Rage won the dang thing on the East Coast. So it's going to be just an extra incentive to be your best out there, to try your hardest. I don't see a problem with it. And these couple thousand that we're talking about is not just slim pickings for some of these players. They're going to want that. They're going to do whatever they can to get it.
Yeah, if you're comparing,
I love having a couple thousand more every 2 weeks.
Yeah, we all would. And most of the people in the stadiums at these XFL games would, I'm sure. Because if you're comparing this to NFL contracts, which you shouldn't, because that's silly, that's apples and oranges, then that looks small, Vince. But when you compare it to the situation a lot of these players might be facing right now, I mean, think about some of the stories we've already heard about some players who, had to escape poverty or had to, go through some hard times. These are awesome opportunities, and it incentivizes players to really put a ton of effort into being great players and to showcasing good football, which is what it's all about. And the fact that quarterbacks are making so much more, which is how the Yahoo article I read kind of spun this, that, oh my God, quarterbacks are making 10 times more than their teammates. Well, hopefully the names that come out with the assigned quarterbacks and the biggest names in the league are the quarterbacks, and they do draw some fans. And if they do, I think paying them more, it makes sense. I mean, you get paid for your contribution to the league, and if you're contributing to putting butts in seats or making the team better and being the best player on the team, you deserve to make more money, right, Vince?
I hate to compare this to the NFL, but look there. I mean, quarterbacks are making 10 times more than a lot of other players on the team. Some of the top quarterbacks are making $20 million a year, and fullbacks are only making, maybe $1 million. As unfair as that may seem. I can't, I hate rehashing this, but, we talked about this on past programs, which you could go back into the archives and listen wherever you get your podcasts at. We talked about how, say, even if you take the average salary, no bonuses whatsoever, $55,000 for, a half a year's worth of work is pretty good, and much more than a lot of people in this country make for working 2 full-time jobs the entire year. So I don't understand the crying about this. This is really just, maybe people that are part of networks that aren't involved in this are making these kind of claims. I don't.
Yeah, Vince, you're really not going to make that much of money in that limited time unless you're on a fishing boat in the middle of the Atlantic.
Yeah, or you're the guinea pig for some experimental drug. And
do you think it's fair to say? I might sound a little cruel here, but do you think it's fair to say that if a player themselves have an issue with the salary, then don't play?
Yeah,
no, that's not cruel at all. It's right. It's personal responsibility.
Exactly. You have these networks or whoever is reporting that, oh my God, look how much they're making, blah, 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 whatever. It's up to the player. And if he thinks it's too little for his efforts on the field, then don't play.
I think it's really just these people that want to make this look as, minor league and bush league as possible.
Well, I don't know.
Ridiculous.
I don't know. Well, yeah, it's weird. It's weird though. Yes, you point out how Yahoo not affiliated with the XFL. Darren Rovell also put something out on this, and he spun it and he's been kind of, I would say he's been championing the XFL, at least reporting on it honestly, but reporting on it too and making people aware. He attended one of the showcases, and he's a well-known, business side of sports reporter. He reported on this story and kind of, Bryant, he said the AAF no longer here means no competition, means the XFL is paying a little bit less than people anticipated. Do you see what he did as spin, like the way Vince is talking about?
In a way, but at the same time, he just was reporting the facts of it all, and I think that's all anybody should ever ask for is just the facts. That hey, the way I see it, and maybe this is the way Rovell sees it, is yes, the AAF is no longer around, so the XFL really has no competition. And do they need to pay players? I mean, this is a business. This isn't charity. This isn't anything like that. This is Vince McMahon, Oliver Luck are out there to make a business work. And if you could pay your players a little less while still being one of the competitive salaries out there, then why not do it? And that's how I think Darren Rovell is basically spinning it when he's comparing it to the AAF no longer being around.
Yeah, that's just kind. I think kind of a compare and contrast thing there. But honestly, all the info that came out, nothing new. I mean, we knew that a lot of the players in the league would be on the base tier, the bottom tier, and they would be making around a maximum of around $60,000 ish. And the numbers that came out here, when of course Yahoo did some ninja math and they made it seem like it's lower, but they said if you're on a 500 team then you're going to make around 55. So that's one way of looking at it. But the fact is these numbers have been out there. The XFL did reveal their salary structure a while ago, and we've talked about it. But it's interesting to see how people are reporting on this. And then for some media members and then fans also commenting on these reports, Jake, when they say, why would I go out there? Why would anyone go out there and risk their life playing football for $60,000? I mean, it's still a game. Playing a game for $60,000 over 5 months is pretty exciting, albeit it's a dangerous game, sure, but me personally, I would risk the dangers of football than having to, I don't know, throw boxes into a
power
UPS
lines on a pole.
Yeah, or throw boxes into a UPS or FedEx truck. I mean, right?
I'm glad you said that because that's something I wanted to bring up. If an outsider doesn't think it's worth somebody, if it's not worth an outsider to get their body beat up for that amount of pay, then that's fine. But these guys are electing and choosing that it is worth it for themselves and their families.
Yeah, I like that the people who make those comments generally aren't people who've played football their entire life, like prospective XFL players who have dreamt about playing football professionally, and also are often people who don't even do any kind of physical labor for their job. So
for the first 24 years of your life, aren't you risking the playing football for free?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not even getting paid for the first 24 years of your life if you're playing football.
It depends where you go to.
Legally.
This is more pay than a lot of, minor league baseball players.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And minor league hockey players. I mean, which are sports that are just as dangerous in my opinion. So I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how people will spotlight the safety concerns all of a sudden, but they look at the salary structure. I mean, first of all, like, we cannot reiterate this enough. These numbers have been known for a while. This memo to the agents was, I guess, an official document of that, maybe. But Oliver Luck has gone on shows and talked about this before. And also, just the standard football is held to, compared to those other sports, Vince, is also very interesting because minor league baseball players have been having to take buses in between cities in Idaho and Iowa for like $13,000 for a year. For many, many years. These guys don't make that much money on the low levels of minor league baseball, and it's funny to see. And these players are also, don't forget, going to be playing on ESPN and Fox in front of national audiences, and they also are going to have opportunities to showcase their talents and maybe earn themselves, who knows, maybe endorsements.
Do you think the game tape itself is worth $55,000? Probably.
The game tape from an XFL
of you
game?
Playing. I'm just saying, like, is that, like, in value wise, getting game tape of you playing professional football might be worth the $55,000. This could lead you to millions of dollars going forward. The value that you're getting, I guess we could say, we talked about value with season tickets and the value you're getting for $20. The value you're getting as a player for $55,000 is quite astonishing.
Oh, and also, I mean, sorry, Vince, but like in that same vein, Bryant, like, if you're a player and you don't feel like you're good enough to go out there and put that game tape out there for it to get recognized and for you to get to that $1 million level, that huge contract in the NFL, then, I mean, if your goal is just to be an XFL player, that's cool. But like, a lot of these players, they have egos and they also think, highly of their own talents, and they also have those goals of making tons of money playing football. And does a coach want a player who doesn't think they're, isn't that competitive or doesn't think they're that good, Vince? I mean, these players want to go out there and prove something.
Yeah. I mean, this is, just to prove maybe, in a lot of these guys, prove that you still got it, and, in other cases, proven that, hey, you do belong maybe in the NFL, and you could really showcase that.
And even if you don't, it's pretty good living for 5 months.
I mean, I don't hear, exactly. I don't hear, any complaining about how somebody could go play football for, southern corner of Louisiana State University and for, probably barely on a scholarship and nobody's watching the game. Here, you're actually getting paid, and it's going to be broadcast for millions of people to watch, and who knows what could come of that. I mean, if you think this is ridiculous, then you got to take a long, hard look at football being played across the country in something that's not big time college or NFL.
Amen. So, interesting, different takes from people who are now reporting on this news we've known for a while, but we'll continue to monitor it and see how, the salary structure of the XFL gets painted by some people. We'll continue to talk about it just as it is and react to it how we do, but it's fascinating subject regarding to the startup league itself. Part 2 of this week's Cover 2, probably a short conversation here, Jake, but it was reported and then retracted, and some people thought it might be real, but it wasn't. Terrell Owens not part of the XFL draft pool. Are you disappointed?
Well, I'm disappointed, but I never took this as legit or thought it was credible to begin with.
Well, you know why he's not part of the draft pool? And,
why?
And because in this case, TO stands for Tier 1. And that's why he does not need to be a part of the draft pool. He will be assigned a team, I'm sure.
Oh, geez. Speculation again from Vince. Right
8
there.
quarterbacks and 1 receiver.
I don't know about that.
If you see a team on
46-year-old receiver,
take a quarterback. If you see a team on Tuesday, take a quarterback with their first pick in that phase 1 of skill positions, where TO's going.
Well, we're supposedly, this show's coming out this weekend. We're recording Saturday morning as I watch John Goodman on College Game Day, and we're supposed to hear these assigned quarterbacks before the draft, as Oliver Luck told us the other day. So TO is not going to be a part of that group. Vince, quit trying to speculate and spread false rumors about TO. We're not in that business.
It's just I wouldn't say it's hilarious, but it's crazy how somebody took this, or people took this as legit and went with it, and no one has confirmed. I mean, that's a story that you have to kind of sit on until you hear something from the league, because you don't just have TO in the league. You don't think the league would be all over this if TO was going to be playing football for the XFL in the spring? It would have been cool. It would have been great, but at the same time, I think I saw it that it was debunked before I actually took it as
maybe it's part of a slow burn.
A slow burn? No, I think someone was just confused because there is a player in the draft pool named Thomas Owens, and they were.
He's calling himself.
Were they abbreviated T Owens and they just went with it?
Yeah, they were. People were just confused.
Yeah.
I'm interesting to note too. A 46-year-old receiver. Speaking of some other older receivers, did you guys notice if Hakeem Nicks was on this in this draft pool list? Any of the 5 groups?
I did not see him.
I did not see him.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we'll sift through it some more here in a minute, but there was a lot of players in the summer showcase. Most of them, I think, made this draft pool. Some didn't. T.O. not part of that group. Also, Oliver Luck the other day, if you listen to that episode or if you haven't, he did say that basically what I've been saying, while this draft is going to be big and there's going to be most of the teams are going to be structured based off this draft with how fluid NFL rosters are, with January at the end of the season in that league, with the CFL ending their season coming up at the end of November, there could be some more players out there for the league to scoop up. And by the league, I mean the XFL. So by no means does this draft solidify these rosters once and for all for February, Vince, like I've been saying.
Yeah, Alan, you have been on that, and I guess I'll just say, Tuesday's just going to be the first step.
Yes, the biggest step for sure. A moment in time, yes. The biggest step, the most important step, but there will be other players after the draft, which will make it even more fun to cover and talk about. But this is probably going to be the most fun we have leading up to 2020, Vince, for you and I, because we love a good draft. I never fathomed we'd be able to do a mock 70-person draft. But here we are, and unfortunately, we were ready to do a 70-person mock draft today on today's program, and Jake said, we're only going to do one player per phase, a mini mock draft, because time constraints, and there's football to watch on a Saturday and going into Sunday too.
I got a bag to pack too. I'm kind of against that 70. I got a bag to pack.
Bryant needs to also be watching, all these college games today to scout future players. I mean, there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores that could be eligible for the XFL next year.
Yeah, Bryant Kuiper Jr.'s got to be doing some work. So we don't have we don't have the time to do a 70-person mock draft today. So what we're going to do is going to be a mini mock draft in this week's Hot Read. Hey, football freaks, it's Alan. Just want to let you know about a brand new football podcast that myself, Vince, and his wife, Pam, started. We want more people to hop on board and start listening because we are talking college football on a national scale with a very extreme Pitt Panther bias. It's called the Hail to Pitt Podcast, and yes, we do focus a lot on the Pitt Panthers, but if you just want to hear us talk more football, if you want a place to go listen to some college football talk, check out the Hail to Pitt Podcast, available on all podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, you name it, it's out there. Subscribe today, Hail to Pitt Podcast. It is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts, and it is absolutely free of charge. Subscribe and review today. Hail to Pitt.
Blue 58! Blue 58! Go! Hey, Ric Flair! Ric Flair!
Pepper, Flip, Caliber. Motown, Happy, Jolly, Drop, Buster, Boomer, Tiger! I think he's got a hound too, Rodney, I think. B-19!
So it's a mini mock draft for us here on This is the XFL Show. 5 phases: skills, offensive lineman, front 7, secondary, special teams / open selections. Those are the 5 phases of the XFL Draft. Those are the 5 phases we're going to adhere to on this week's Hot Read. One player is going to be picked by each of us, Jake, Vince, Bryant, and myself, for each phase. After the draft, if there are any players that are left on the board we want to discuss or hype up, we'll do that. Before each phase gets started in this mini draft, we'll also discuss and predict how each team might approach that phase based on where they're picking. Jake is keeping us to a strict 90 seconds for each pick. And just so you guys know, whenever you hear this,
Good, crisp football.
that means you're on the clock. So, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Bryant, you have anything to add?
Alan, I was going to say, if you could also just add in there, because we didn't talk about it here, but our lottery was based off, we put our names in a tumbler, right, on T-shirts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we made sure that we all got a fair shot at this draft coming up, the order we all chose.
Yes, traditional Royal Rumble style, randomly selecting the lottery for the phases. In phase 1, we'll get into it. In the XFL, for the skill phase, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight ends, the DC Defenders have the first pick. The Houston Roughnecks are 2. New York Guardians are 3. Dallas Renegades 4. Tampa Bay Vipers 5. St. Louis Battlehawks 6. Seattle will be 7. LA 8. In that order. In our order, I have the first pick. Vince goes 2. Bryant 3. Jake 4. Before we make our picks, what's your philosophy and what do you think happens in phase 1, Vince?
Assuming quarterbacks are going to be assigned, unless there is a guy that you cannot possibly pass up, I don't see quarterbacks going in that the first round of that phase. And I think it is going to be receivers. Being a fast-paced league, I think if you can grab a guy that can be very reliable, good cardio, help help move the sticks, I think that's really what's going to be important if you could grab that guy.
I'm not 100% on that, Vince. 10 players in the round. I mean, there's definitely be a quarterback selected, multiple in that skill phase by teams. Sure. But I think there might be a quarterback selected in the very first round of that skill phase. And
we talked about it.
I see Pep Hamilton doing it with all of his success with Andrew Luck, a big young quarterback. There's a big young quarterback out there named Connor Cook that I think Pep Hamilton could do great with. Would not be surprised if a quarterback's the first pick of skill phase, round one.
If you have the first overall pick, you're going to pick Pep Hamilton. Pep Hamilton has the first overall pick, so you're saying Connor Cook could go number 1 overall in this draft.
Would not be surprised if a quarterback.
I would be 100% shocked if that happens. I think you're going to have to build your core receiving, your core running back game. I think you can maybe stay away from a tight end, but definitely you're going to have to get your skill position. Jake, I know where you're going to go with this based on the episode 89. Or what are we on now? 91 or 89? We're on 91. So 89, Jake, you were saying wide receiver all the way. That's your first pick. It's a good philosophy because now we are essentially, it's only skilled players. So you have to go running back. You have to go wide receiver in this pick. Who's going to catch the ball? Who's going to run the ball for you? You already have someone that you potentially can throw the ball for.
That's still what I think. But, I mean, going back to what the other guys are saying, if Coach Hamilton, as far as we know, they're going to be assigned these quarterbacks, right? There's not really.
They're assigned based on the coach's want.
Okay, so there is some negotiation. Yes. Some negotiation.
Yeah, the coaches gave their list of quarterbacks they want, and the league is going to assign the quarterbacks based on which quarterbacks are available and based on the lists they were given by each team. That's how that process is going to work.
Everybody's going to have a backup quarterback or quarterbacks. It just depends if you want to use the number 1 overall pick on it. Personally, I would not, but I'm going to hear what you guys are doing.
I want as many good quarterbacks in my camp, so I think Pep Hamilton, I could see Mark Trestman being coaches, general managers in this first skill phase, going quarterback, if not round 1, but early in this phase. If I'm Hal Mummy or June Jones, Vince, I got to have Quadri Henderson, who I saw is in this draft pool.
Oh, yeah.
A speedy, multiple-use utility receiver, gadget-type player would be great in those kind of offenses.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up. He was somebody that I had targeted.
Total pit bias, by the way, but yes.
Somebody that, in the return game, I don't think you're finding anybody better than him on these boards. I'll tell you that right now for special teams. But, somebody who could play running back, somebody who could play receiver, maybe not the best route runner as a receiver, but somebody, if you get the ball in his hands
in an air raid, you don't need to be a great route runner.
Could do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I'm also saying here I'm looking at coaches and trying to picture what they'll do. New York at 3. I could see Kevin Gilbride going with one of those running backs who has proven to be touchdown scorers and guys who had great careers in college who got a lot of yards. And if you look at the draft pool, Bryant, Donnell Pumphrey, Brandon Oliver, 2 guys who fit that mold. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Gilbride went after one of those 2.
I was looking at both of those as well. Can Kevin Gilbride get what he's looking for in terms of a running back? And then I think it's so interesting that some of these coaches are going to get the first player that they want, and they have no idea what's going to be left there towards the end. It's very risky to me, honestly, to pick early in the skill position, because you might get the one player you want, but you need 5 solid skill positions to be able to compete in this league, and you might not get your crack at another one. So yeah, Kevin Gilbride might go after a running back, but he might not know what the heck's going to be available for him 20 minutes later on his position when he comes back around, because you got to remember this is a snake draft as well.
Yeah, you're right. I think this based off the coaches, general managers' tendencies, their histories, you could kind of envision what a guy like Kevin Gilbride will do. He's a balanced attack guy. I'm sure he wants good running backs, reliable running backs. I'm sure he's got a really good quarterback pegged to get assigned to the team. But then there are coaches like Winston Moss and Jonathan Hayes, who are going into this for the first time. Now, we know Jonathan Hayes, offensive guy, tight ends coach for a long time with the Bengals. Winston Moss, a defensive guy, also an assistant head coach and a great inspirational leader type coach. But I have no idea what these guys are going to do with their first picks in the skill phase. Vince, do you?
Yeah, we tried to guess this stuff on a previous episode. Yeah, we felt like Jim Zorn was going quarterback.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
It's really going to be difficult. And I've been saying this. Each of these individual coaches are going to have their own board, and I think their boards are all going to be drastically different. I don't think it's like the NFL where there's always a couple consensus guys that everybody knows are going to are the top 5 to 10 players in the draft. But here, I think it's going to be wildly different across the board.
Yeah, fascinating. Right out of the gate, skill phase. I'm hoping Jim Zorn goes quarterbacks the first 3 rounds of the phase. Or at least the first 2, just to make sure he has plenty to choose from come training camp, which honestly might not be a bad strategy. If you guys are ready, though, we're going to get into our quick mini mock draft of the skill phase. Are you ready, Jake?
I am ready.
Okay,
I've
good.
got the stopwatch in my hand.
Okay, good. And remember, you have the last pick in this round. Up first, Alan is on the clock. This is the XFL Show's mini mock draft skill phase number 1.
Good, crisp football.
And I don't need my full 90 seconds. With the first pick of this skill phase, I want as many quarterbacks to choose from, good quarterbacks in my training camp. We select Connor Cook, 6'4" quarterback, Michigan State. How do you like that? Up next on the clock is Vince.
Good, crisp football.
Yeah, I was looking over these running backs and receivers, and I didn't see, that one guy that really separated himself. So I'm actually taking a quarterback as well. And I think this guy is going to be better than maybe some of the tier 1 guys, unless I'm really surprised. And that's Eric Dungy, as a quarterback out of Syracuse. He was in some NFL camps. This league is tailor-made for him, wide open, playing with reckless abandon. I really like this kid.
Well, I will say before we get to the next pick, Vince, Eric Dungy got picked up again by the Browns practice squad because they had someone go down. So he's been in and out of that practice squad, but he's still in this pool. So that's going to be one of the more interesting players to keep an eye on. Very athletic, but is out there and available, even though he's on an NFL practice squad now, which, like I've been saying, you got to keep an eye on those all the rest of the year, because a lot of those players are going to become available, and they're going to come in and out of those camps. Up next in our mini mock draft on the clock is Bryant.
Good, crisp football.
All right, you guys have made this extremely hard for me, Joel. Not because you picked 2 quarterbacks that I wanted, but because now you left every single player that I wanted still on the board, because there's no way you need to go quarterback first. You're going to see this tendency with me because I'm going with experience. And Alan, when I first put all these stats together, I told you what stats did I use. I used NFL preseason stats and the Alliance stats. You said we need to look at college, so I pulled college for you guys, but I'm looking at experience in the same kind of environment with lower end players, the AAF specifically as well. How did they do in these leagues? Because that is what the XFL is going to be as well. So I pick, with my first overall pick, Jarrell Presley from the Arizona Hotshots. And I guess you could say from New Mexico, so running back. I'm going to have him anchor my team.
Yeah, that's a sound strategy. The issue I have with picking on experience is you want, especially the running back, I kind of want legs. I want mileage, Bryant, but I see where you're going there for sure. I'm actually kind of surprised some of those players you had on the list here that were in the AAF are even available, because a lot of those AAF players got picked up by NFL teams. Coming up next,
I was shocked as well.
To close up Phase 1, Jake is on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
Yeah, I'm not going to go with a quarterback. I'm going along the same vein as Bryant, but I'm not going to go a running back. A lot of these guys, they got a lot of miles on them. already. A little mud on the tires, and I'm going to stick with what I said 2 weeks ago. I'm going to go with receiver. That's why I'm going with Stacy Coley out of the U, drafted by the Vikings in 2017. He's got some experience. We know everybody's going to be assigned someone to throw the ball, but you need somebody to catch it.
And if you're picking a guy who's a sub 4.4 42, which we have here on our list here, according to pro day and combine numbers, that's not a bad strategy, Jake. Although I want quarterbacks, and that does it.
Well, that's fine. I got one quarterback, and that's all I want for right now.
I think this is the opposite, Vince. If you got 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks, I think you got more. You got more. Now, traditionally you say you got none. I want choices in this training camp and mini camp season.
That's not a bad idea. That's a little different for me. I haven't quite experienced anything like that in quite some time.
This is a very, very interesting how different our philosophies are. When you said, Bryant, I don't know what to do. I have everybody on my board available. I bet you that happens to one of these teams picking of the 8 in all phases, in each skill phase, or in each phase. It's skill phase, offensive line, all the way through.
I said it on the last week's show. You only have 90 seconds to react to what people are doing in front of you. And if you don't make the right decision, if you're like pick 7, you have 2 minutes to come back at it. It comes right back at you again. So your draft can explode in front of your eyes without even knowing. Like it just happened to me. I did not expect you guys to both go quarterback. So I had 4 players chosen. So now I had 4 players available for me as well.
Pick of the litter.
So it can get, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be quick. But so everybody's got to be on their toes. You got to have a backup plan. You got to have contingencies. And you got to go with your gut sometimes as well when the draft is only 90 seconds per pick.
I cannot wait till after the draft and we hear where guys were on all the boards. Vince, do you think we're going to hear like anybody saying, we're going to hear like after the skill phase, Bob Stoops saying, well, we wanted this guy, but Gilbride took him at 3 right before us?
I'm sure we'll hear some of that.
What was it that the New York GM said about Daniel Jones? He was the number 1 court player on our draft board. We would have picked him number 1 if he was available or something like that.
Yeah, David Gettleman, yes. I mean, that's everybody's got a different board, vastly different sometimes. And this is a board of 70-plus players, so how different are these going to be? We'll talk phase 2 now, which is offensive line. I mean, this is difficult because there isn't stats as much as there is, just data on how big these players are and what they did in their combines and their pro days. I mean, this is more difficult as novice scouts to go through here. But my goal and my philosophy is I want 5 average linemen versus having 1 really good lineman and a bunch of bums. Vince, I don't know about you, but I would like to be picking in the 3 to 6 range in this phase.
Yeah, you're really only as strong as your weakest link on the offensive line. So I really think that's a sound strategy.
Having to wait that long in between picks in a snake-style draft, Brian, as you brought up earlier, for offensive linemen, that might be an issue because your second pick could be a guy of lesser talent.
Yeah, I'll say, probably in the offensive line phase, it's going to affect you a lot just because Vince always brings up that point, and it's true. You're only as strong as your weakest link on the offensive line. I would say if you're the first picks, first 1 and 2, you might be in trouble because you have to wait so long for that to come back to you. But after that, even the 8th spot, you get 8 and 9. So that's 2 pretty solid offensive linemen right there. But LA and Seattle, I worry about a little bit in this situation. But again, the coaches are going to probably go with the best linemen available. And sometimes that does also help a very weak line.
And you also go back to the AAF, Jake. The toughest part to watch of those games were the offensive line struggled, all of them, all across that league, struggling to protect quarterbacks, a lot of them getting killed. So this is probably, I have to guess, was the most difficult phase for you to prep for, because it was for me.
Yeah, just getting, you watch some of those AAF guys, just getting run over, pushed down, thrown into the quarterback. Conventional wisdom would say you want to pick the heaviest guy out there. But there's a number of other factors. So I do want to hear what you guys say, and I believe Vince is going to go first in this round.
Yes, Vince is up first as we mini mock draft phase 2 offensive linemen here on This Is the XFL Show.
Good, crisp football.
Yeah, I'm going to take, and this guy's been out of the game for a little bit, but I do remember him playing at a very high level. Cyrus Kwanjo, he was a big offensive lineman out of Alabama, 5-star recruit at the time. Kind of fizzled out in the NFL one way or another, but this guy was, big and nasty. This is and if you could harness that ability to really get him motivated to play and push people around again. This is definitely something I could see Coach Moss really salivating over.
All right, up next here in phase 2 of our mini mock draft will be Jake.
Good, crisp football.
Well, I believe this is a first. Vince, you took my pick.
Wow.
Well, he does have a brother, I will say that is also in the draft pool.
But if I can't get somebody from Alabama, I might as well get somebody from Clemson. That's why I'm going with Taylor Hearn, 6'4", 320. He was undrafted, but that was in 2018. So I'm going to go with somebody that's, a little younger versus someone that has been drafted by an NFL team a number of years ago, but is currently not playing. So I'm going Taylor Hearn.
Bryant is on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
So I had a weird strategy for this one for offensive linemen, because what I did is I sorted by Wisconsin and see who played for Wisconsin.
Smart strategy.
Although I didn't really like it too much. I'm going to go again with somebody who played recently, still a little young, has some size on him, and a little bit of speed. Played for the AAF as well for the San Diego Fleet. I'm going Terry Poole out of the University of San Diego State, 4th overall pick in 2015. So not too long ago. I'm sorry, not 4th overall pick, excuse me, 4th round. So definitely some validity there with some talent. Maybe didn't play out too well in the NFL, just needs a second chance. So I'm going to go with Terry Poole, offensive tackle.
You know what? For as much as you have criticized the AAF, and rightfully so, it feels like you're just letting them do all your dirty work and scout.
We are committed to a long-term vision.
I've criticized that man right there, Mr. Ebersol. But the AAF, in terms of the XFL, is there for you to use. And if it'd be silly for any of the coaches to completely ignore the Alliance when it comes to picking their draft picks for this draft.
Are the 90 seconds up here? Can I make my pick?
Yes.
This is absurd. Allen's on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
You should have gone with the Wisconsin guy. I got scared you were going to take Connor Sheehy was the Wisconsin lineman that's in this draft pool. But then I was scrolling down in our list here, and I said, actually, I'm going to make a last-second change. Maya Tuema, who played for Southeastern Louisiana but transferred there from LSU and is a big, mean offensive lineman who can play multiple positions, had some personal issues, but harnessing those, getting the viciousness and the size of a player like that, I would love on my offensive line. So that's where I'm going with my pick in phase 2. I'm just hoping I'm picking where St. Louis, Tampa, Dallas, or New York are picking 3 through 6. I think that I'm guaranteeing, I'm calling the shot right now, Vince. One of those 4 teams will have the best offensive line in the XFL.
It could be a safe bet there.
Alan, if I can say real quick, I just want to say congrats to our friend here, Sean Hickey, who was a guest on our show.
Yes.
For getting the draft pool invite. So good luck to him.
Yes, good luck to Sean Hickey, who we had on the show. You can go check out his interview on one of our past episodes. I don't forget exactly what number, but he gave us a lot of insight into what the players were facing going into, getting invited to the summer showcases and the draft pool, and now he's made it there, and hopefully we'll talk to him after he gets drafted by one of these XFL teams. We are now in phase number 3. Phase 3 will be the defensive front 7 phase. Tampa Bay's picking first in that phase, and it'll be closed up by Dallas. In the middle there, defense, we're talking the LA Wildcats, Winston Moss, Bryant. Winston Moss gets a pick right in the middle of that round. Interesting for the defensive guy to have that spot. I don't know. In this round, I kind of want to have a top pick because my strategy is to have a coverage middle linebacker who could also fill gaps. And if I don't get that, I want to get me a good edge rusher. What about you?
I want a linebacker that's going to anchor my core. I want someone who's going to get 100+ tackles for the season. I want someone who can read the offense as well as possible. I played linebacker in high school. I mean, that doesn't really compare to anything these guys are doing, but at least they know that the importance of having a good crisp linebacker. So I'm definitely looking linebacker.
I think it just shows your bias and you love linebackers more because you played linebacker.
Okay, Pitt guy.
That's
okay, Pitt guy.
Vince, I have a question for you. Do you think it's safe to say one of these top 3 teams, Tampa, St. Louis, or Seattle, will select Terrence Garvin in the very first round of this phase?
Yeah, that would be it. I mean, talk about a guy that was just playing at a high level not that long ago. Terrence Garvin, he's definitely a first rounder, I think.
In this phase, Jake, you're picking 3, but I want to know what your philosophy is, even though we got to wait a minute till you pick.
Well, I feel like I don't want to give my philosophy away because somebody else might scoop it up.
All right.
I mean, it'll be explained once I make the pick.
Okay. What about like what do you see Tampa Bay doing at the top of this phase? They're picking first, St. Louis and Seattle following them. Where do you want to be if you're one of these XFL teams? Is it top, middle, the back end of a snake-style draft in the defensive front 7 phase?
I mean, there's good and bad for everything. I think for the skill position, it would be more advantageous to take number 1 rather than number 1 in any of these other categories.
In this one, I think it varies, is what you're getting at there. I think, Jake, and you're right. There are pluses and minuses to where you're picking here, and I think there are some standouts in this group. Let's see how we all think, though, in our mini mock draft phase number 3. Bryant is on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
So it took me a little bit to understand what exactly I wanted to do. Then I figured out it was linebacker. I'm going to stay with my same kind of mentality where I'm going with experience in spring football. I'll call it then, if you guys don't want me to call it the AAF. It was hard for me to choose. I had a couple of... I'm going to go with linebacker. Man, I can't believe... I knew it was number 1, too. I'm going to go linebacker. Andrew Jackson out of Western Kentucky. Played for the Memphis Express. I had him ranked as one of my highest linebackers in the AAF when that league was around. So I'm going Andrew Jackson, linebacker out of Western Kentucky.
All
Fast
right.
guy, by the way, under 5'40".
More AAF
president also.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Allen is on the clock.
Crisp football.
Don't get political during the draft, Jake. All right. I'm taking Terrence Garvin. Easy pick. He was like the most dominant player in the AAF, and he has NFL experience. Enough said. Take that, Vince. Easy pick for me. Jake is on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
All right, I'm going to go with linebacker Gianni Paul out of Utah. He also played in the spring league for Salt Lake. He's not coming out of school in 2016, so he's not as recent as some of my other picks, but he does have recent experience.
Like it. All right, Vince, you're closing it up in phase 3. You're on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
Yeah, I would have taken Garvin had he been available, but I'm going with, he's listed as a linebacker, but played defensive end in college. Could probably play a hybrid of positions, and that's James Folston out of Pitt. This kid, was a little undersized as a defensive end, but but an outstanding athlete, and I will say one of the best bodies in this entire draft.
But in terms of size, strength, speed, what are you talking?
Just his look, one of the best bodies. I mean, this guy.
Vince, I never took you for a body guy.
He is just shredded for a body guy. From top to bottom. You can see every muscle on this kid's body. He's in tremendous athletic condition, excellent nutrition.
It's very important. Hopefully, it translates to the field. There are also some standouts on here. A lot of guys in the linebacker position and defensive line positions that have NFL experience and AAF experience. Guys like Coney Ely, who played a lot in the NFL, Obum Gwacham. Did any of us even pick a defensive lineman, or did we all go linebacker there?
No, well, Vince was the closest, but we all basically did linebacker.
Wow. Well, that shows.
It was something I struggled with, but I ended up with linebacker ultimately.
I cannot wait to see how the XFL teams pick in that phase, because there are some quality linebackers and defensive linemen. I'm venturing to guess the first 4 are going to be linebacker. We shall see. Phase 4, is going to be secondary, defensive backs, corners, safeties. Let's get into it. The AAF developed a lot of good defensive backs that were rated by the NFL. A lot of those players that went from the AAF to the NFL were defensive backs. And if you ask me, these XFL teams are going to have a lot of experienced guys to choose from, but I have to believe they're going to go with young guys that maybe we don't know a lot about in this one. This is going to be difficult. You're going to have to do a lot of researching on cone drills and scouting combine numbers, and hopefully they got a good eye test at the summer showcases. I don't know how you guys looked at it. This one was tough for me. Vince, you're starting us off in phase 4. You're on the clock.
Good crisp football.
Yeah, this was the hardest one for me, trying to find a quality player, because I know and a lot of these guys, some of the older ones I have heard of, but you wonder what do they still have left in the tank, and that's why I'm going with Stephen Roberts, a safety out of Auburn, was an undrafted player. But in the NFL a couple years ago, but still relatively young and has some good speed and could play a safety or a corner position.
All right, next up on the clock, Allen in phase 4.
Good crisp football.
And we've been talking about him, and I'm going young with my pick in my secondary. I want guys who are athletic, who can go, who could cover, who could keep up and play the entire game and not come off the field. And I'm hoping Kenny Robinson Jr. is ready. Leaving college early to go pro in the XFL, had academic issues at West Virginia, a highly touted player out of high school. So I'm taking him here with my first pick of phase 4 defensive backs, Kenny Robinson Jr., who we talked to Oliver Luck about on the last show. Next on the clock in our mini mock draft in phase 4 is Bryant.
Good crisp football.
So I went relatively young this entire draft. I'm gonna go with some experience here. A little bit on his draft year was 2011, went undrafted for the University of Florida, but was one of the cornerstones of that Orlando Apollo defense. And I'm going Will Hill out of the University of Florida.
An older player, but I remember him at the time. This kid had a lot of athletic ability. Thought he was going to be a surefire, NFL standout. This didn't work out, but I'm excited to see him in the XFL.
This kid, he's like as old as us.
Yeah,
he's seasoned, but yeah, he was a part. You're right, Brian. I would really want anybody who was a part of that Steve Spurrier Apollos team. I think, are you picking all Apollos?
No, I did not pick. No, I did. You did pick some as well. They could beat, by the way, the Miami Dolphins of the league. Anyway, but according to Steve Spurrier, anyway.
All right, Jake, you are closing it up here. You're on the clock in phase 4.
Good crisp football.
You're talking about the Apollos. I'm going to go with a Seminole here, who stayed in the state of Florida to play for the Apollos, and Marquez White, cornerback.
Wow, I think it's pretty cut and dry. We all are picking for the best defense of the last spring league we saw when it came to the secondary, and they had guys from that team go to the NFL as well. Phase 4, very, very, very crucial because this is a passing league. You need good defenses. So I expect to see a good mixture of those experienced guys, but also probably a lot of young players getting selected in phase 4, which brings us to the wild card round and the specialist round. Phase 5, I mean, let's just put this out there. Does anybody expect a kicker or punter to be picked first in this phase?
Yes.
What? Are you serious?
A kicker is a very important position. Maybe not a punter, but I think a kicker. If you have one of the better available kickers,
that's absolutely ridiculous.
That was absurd.
What?
I can't believe.
Man.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's just get into it and see what kicker Bryant picks, I guess. Jake, you're starting us off in the final phase. Specialists, and it's an open phase, so any player is available, and specialists here in phase number 5. Jake on the clock.
Good crisp football.
Yeah, you're right. Whenever it gets down to the real draft, I don't see people picking a kicker first. But since my career and my paycheck is not on the line on this, and I'm just doing this for fun, I'm picking a kicker because you're going to win. You're going to win or lose probably, I don't know what, 2 games out of a 10-game season based on your kicker. That's why I'm going with Roberto Aguayo out of another Seminole.
Oh, my goodness. One of the most controversial picks in NFL history. I mean, a huge bust, but okay. Bryant, you're on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
Well, now that Jake basically took my kicker, I'm going to have to go somewhere else along the lines now because I just don't trust any of the other kickers right now at this moment in time. This is where I think you can start filling out your roster. I've kind of talked about on the last show that you need probably a defensive front seven, because if you only get 10 picks and you're only allowed 10 of those players, you're probably going to need a couple more backups there. But I'm going to go, because I haven't really talked about it too much, I'm going quarterback. There's no way he's probably on the board when this draft comes along, but I did want to talk about him a little bit, and that's BJ Daniels. I wanted to say that if I could take him in this phase, if he's available when I'm St. Louis, I'm taking him the first pick if it's open.
It sounds like you got a little embarrassed that you said you were picking a kicker first and you just changed your choice.
No. I was going to pick the kicker you picked, but then since you picked him, I'm shifting.
All right, sure.
Okay, he's shifting. It's smart, though. You want choices at quarterback. It's smart. I do not blame you for that strategy. Now I'm on the clock, and I'll show you how to do it.
Good, crisp football.
All right, in Phase 5, if I'm any of these coaches, I am just thinking nothing but linebackers and DBs. I want to have the best defense in this league, and I want to be able to cover and tackle. So with that said, I'm taking a linebacker in this phase. I'm going to go with Desean Davis, who was a linebacker out of Auburn and is totally checks all the boxes for me in terms of size and speed to cover and tackle. Desean Davis, linebacker, Auburn, is my selection in Phase 5. Vince, you're on the clock.
Good, crisp football.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same level of thinking as Alan. Is that you got to be able to have guys on that defense that you can sub in and out and not lose a beat, because to keep up with these fast-paced offenses, specifically the Hal Mummies and June Joneses of the world.
It's a young man's league.
It is. It's going to be a struggle, and that's why I am going to go defensive line here, and I'm going to go versatility with the young man that we talked to, Anthony Johnson Sr. This guy, he's playing at a good weight right now. He can play inside. He can play outside. He just wants to display his versatility. An excellent player.
There it is, our mini mock draft. Got a glimpse into all of our thinking for how we would draft, how we think some of these XFL teams will draft, and really so unpredictable because so many different things can happen in a 70-person draft. You have no idea what these boards look like for these teams, but we try to give you a glimpse into what you might be thinking, at least on a base level. Are there any other standout players or names, Bryant, that you discovered that stand out to you that we didn't mention here that you're going to be watching on Tuesday and Wednesday?
Oh, the pressure you put on me. I will say Nelson Spruce at wide receiver. Good speed, good height. He's
the Colorado receiver, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
2016 undrafted. He caught almost 300 passes in college. That's huge because there were so many dropped passes in the AAF that you need someone who you can rely on to actually catch a ball, regardless of where it is. So someone like that I would definitely look at as well. And then I think, did I have a linebacker, defensive lineman? Obum Gwacham, I guess I really don't know how to pronounce his name. Played for the Arizona Hotshots as well, out of the University of Oregon State. A 2015 6th-round pick for the Seattle Seahawks. I'd definitely take a look at him if you need somebody on your defensive line.
Yeah, he had a lot of playing time with the Saints, too, and was semi-productive with them. I think he was injured a lot. Jake, I have a question for you. Do you necessarily think these players the league has kind of spotlighted on their social media with like mini video packages, do you necessarily think they will be selected high in these drafts? Do you think that indicates they're high on some of these coaches' boards?
I would think you would have to assume that, but it's really too much to discuss in this format. I'll say that much.
I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on where BJ Daniels and players like him who with the league have put videos out about go. I'm also really interested to see where guys like, who had thousands upon thousands of yards rushing in college and scored tons of touchdowns go. Guys like Donnell Pumphrey, guys like Ralph Webb who went to Vanderbilt, and guys like Brandon Oliver who was Buffalo's all-time leading rusher. I'm fascinated to see how this league approaches the running back position, a very controversial position. If you ever talk about football in a bar with people, there's the camp that if they're a dime a dozen, me. And then there are the camp that people just want the best possible backs. I can't wait to see what these coaches do at that position. Vince, you wrap us up here for the hot read, man. What do you think about any certain players that we didn't mention here during our mini mock draft?
I don't know if this is just a favor to Oliver Luck or what, but Noel Devine, running back out of West Virginia, this guy was in college 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Hey, Frank Gore's still playing. Come on.
Was an electric 5-star player, an excellent athlete, by all accounts. I think only really had a cup of coffee in the NFL and didn't get a chance to do any of that research. I mean, maybe outside of Bob Stoops being in this league, which I still can't get over, this may be the biggest shocker to me. I'm very curious to see if this guy, has what he's got left in the tank, because you talk about guys that could really, to be electric with the ball in their hands and make big plays in the open field. I mean, this is a guy that, at one time was more than capable of that.
Vince, I have one last question. Will a fullback be picked anywhere before the last 5 rounds of Phase 5?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I'll say so.
Really? Wow. I would be surprised, but if there is one, I'm calling J.D. Moore, LSU's old fullback. But, man, so many different...
He'd be wearing number 18.
He was back then, yeah. I don't know if they'll allow that in the XFL. Ooh, I can't wait. I wonder what the number structure is. Do you think we'll see offense?
That's a whole show that I think
You're right. Jake, put a pin in that. I want to talk about if offensive linemen could wear number 88.
Definitely.
All right. Unless anybody else has any players or anything we need to discuss with regards to the draft, I think we covered about as much as we can here without taking this another 3 hours.
Alan, we only talked about 23 players. We have another, 500 and whatnot to go. We're ending the show now.
How about we just put a pin in it till Tuesday and Wednesday when we're actually at the draft, Bryant, you and I, and we could just discuss all the players as they're getting drafted and as more information comes in, because we're going to be right there in the thick of it.
That is true. You're right. Okay. We'll put a pin in this one then for a couple days.
Save it till the draft, because we're going to be there, baby. All right. Thank you so much to everybody for listening to both episodes this week. If you did, we appreciate you. If you didn't catch episode 90 from Thursday, go check it out. That's on our podcast feed or on our YouTube channel. And this episode, I thought, was pretty cordial, all things considered. Although I'm going to be giving Bryant hell for a while for thinking a kicker is going to go first in Phase 1 or Phase 5 when it doesn't happen. I'm going to be pointing and laughing, Bryant. Just be ready for that come Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever it happens.
Your quarterback thing is way more absurd. Way more absurd.
I don't know about that, Jake.
About what? Taking a quarterback for the overall number 1 pick?
Yeah.
No, taking a quarterback. Well, yeah, overall number 1 pick or a kicker as a number 1 overall pick.
I mean, it's not for me, but I could see it happening. I really could.
If Pep Hamilton takes a quarterback, oh man, so much to discuss if that happens.
I hope he does, and then I hope we interview him on the show on Tuesday, and you have to explain yourself for doubting him, and then he puts you in your place. We'll see. I cannot wait. Tuesday, Phase 1.
Hold on, Alan. Pep Hamilton can put me in his place. Put me in my place anytime he wants. He's way more of an expert than I am.
He's got to answer to Coach Moss if he yells.
All he's going to say is, "I wanted another quarterback. That's why." And then you're going to say, "Okay, sir."
Look, I don't know what any of these coaches are actually going to do. What's going to happen? All I know, and this is the truth. All I know is Coach Moss is right. That's all I know.
Well, we'll see. I can't wait to react to these picks and find out what's going to be going on in Stamford at XFL headquarters during the XFL Draft. We will be there, so keep it locked to all the XFL social media channels. They're going to be doing all kinds of awesome stuff during the draft to keep everybody informed on what's going on and to give people sneak peeks into what's going on. And we're going to be there, be a part of it. So follow them at XFL 2020 on all the social media channels, XFL.com and their YouTube channel. It's going to be popping on Tuesday and Wednesday. We appreciate everybody for subscribing to this podcast. Appreciate all of our gentle patrons on Patreon. So much content to give you now that the draft is coming. There's going to be players to talk about afterwards, arguing, analyzing. I mean, lots and lots of work to do. And if you have opinions, we want to hear them at XFL Show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or call in 724-565-4XFL. If you think Brian's crazy for thinking kickers will be taken first in Phase 5. If you think I'm crazy for wanting a quarterback right out of the gates, even though I've already been assigned a quarterback in Phase 1, let us know your opinion. Or if you like Jake's philosophy, because he actually spoke pretty eloquently for being the guy who was saying, I have no idea going into this thing.
You're welcome, Jake.
Yeah, checks in the mail.
No. If you love Bryant Kuiper Jr. and want that to be an ongoing character on the show, let us hear it at XFL Show. No, thanks, everybody. Awesome week. Really had a blast doing 2 shows. Look forward to more weeks with multiple shows, and looking forward to seeing you all from the XFL Draft on October 15th and October 16th, next Tuesday and Wednesday. For Vince, for Jake, for Bryant, I'm Alan. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening. And DC, you're on the clock.
Thanks for watching and listening, XFL fans. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below, or even better, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things XFL. Check out some of our other videos and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at XFL Show. This is the XFL Show, is a production of Pretty Easy Podcasts.